Hello and welcome. I am Kieran. I work at the Somnock Public Library District. Thanks for tuning in today to our Classic Chapter Club. So what is the Classic Chapter Club? Well, each week I will be reading a chapter from a classic children's book. You can leave comments or questions in the comment field, and then during the next video session I will try to answer those. So to get started, this week we are going to start reading The Three Musketeers. It's one of my favorite classics. It's written by Alexandre Dumas. And I will be reading from the Great Illustrated Classics. You can get these interlibrary loaned if you want to read along with you, or with me, I should say. And the publisher is Baronet Books. So we'll start with Chapter 1. Chapter 1, D'Artagnan. The young man riding into the small French town of Meun that April morning in 1625 made the citizens stop their work and stare in amazement. The man had to be from Gascony in southern France, for only a Gascon would have the boldness to be seen on such an old, ridiculous-looking pony. It had a yellowy orange coat and a tail with no hair. It seemed so ashamed of its appearance that it walked with its head lower than its knees. But young D'Artagnan of Gascony sat on its back proudly. He was on his way to Paris to join the king's Musketeers, those bold, courageous soldiers who guarded King Louis XIII of France. D'Artagnan carried with him 3 gifts from his father: a purse containing 15 crowns of gold, a sword which had been in his family for generations, and a letter of introduction to Monsieur de Treville, the captain of the king's Musketeers. But D'Artagnan also carried with him his father's parting words. "My son," he had said, "I have taught you how to handle a sword well. You must never draw back from a duel. You must be brave for 2 reasons. You are a Gascon, and you are my son." His father's words still rang in his ears as D'Artagnan climbed down from his pony at the inn of the Jolly Miller in Meun. 3 men, standing at the front door, glanced at him, then looked back a second time. All 3 burst into laughter. "I say, sir," said D'Artagnan, approaching the men, "tell me what you are laughing at, and we will laugh together." The tallest of the 3, a dark-haired nobleman with a patch over one eye and a scar on his cheek, looked from the pony to its master. "I am not speaking to you, sir," he said with a sneer. "But I am speaking to you," cried D'Artagnan angrily. The nobleman ignored D'Artagnan, but pointed to the pony and whispered something to his friends. All 3 laughed again. D'Artagnan drew his sword and cried, "Gentlemen, you laugh at a pony, but you do not dare laugh at its master?" "No one tells me when to laugh," said the nobleman. "I laugh when I please." With that he turned to enter the inn. But D'Artagnan was not the sort of man to let someone laugh at him and escape. He ran after the man, shouting, "Turn around, sir, or I shall strike you from behind." The man whirled around and drew his sword. But at the same moment, his 2 friends came at D'Artagnan with sticks and shovels. One heavy blow opened a large gash on his head, and another knocked him unconscious. The innkeeper sent 2 of his servants to carry the wounded man inside. As they placed him on the bed, a letter fell out of his pocket. The innkeeper picked it up and saw that it was addressed to the captain of the Musketeers. "Perhaps the nobleman outside would be interested in this," he murmured. And the nobleman was. "What business can that boy have with my enemy?" he exclaimed in surprise. Well, my business here with Milady is more important right now. I shall look into this letter later." Meanwhile, D'Artagnan had regained consciousness and staggered to the door. He saw the nobleman talking to a beautiful young woman seated in an elegant carriage. The man's words reached D'Artagnan's ears. "The cardinal has ordered you to return to England at once, milady. At the court often, and let him know if the Duke of Buckingham leaves London." "I understand," replied the woman, "but you must leave quickly too. The least delay, such as that young man, can ruin our plans." The nobleman leaped on his horse and galloped off in the direction of Paris. "Come back, coward!" cried D'Artagnan, running out the door. But his wounds had left him too weak to take more than a few steps. As he stumbled back to the inn, he wondered what the mysterious conversation meant. The cardinal they had talked about had to be Cardinal Richelieu, the powerful man who really ruled France. And the Duke of Buckingham, why, he was the Prime Minister of England, the real power behind King Charles I. Was a war being planned between the two countries? He would find out when he reached Paris. The next morning, as D'Artagnan was dressing to continue his journey, he discovered that his letter to Monsieur de Troisville was missing. He burst in furiously on the innkeeper and demanded to know where it was. "Oh, monsieur," said the frightened man, "it was that stranger you challenged to a duel. He stole your letter while you were unconscious." "The scoundrel! I shall report him to Monsieur de Troisville when I reach Paris." D'Artagnan rode out of Meun, muttering, "He shall be punished. That nobleman with the black patch has not seen the last of D'Artagnan of Gascony." Chapter 2. The Captain of the Musketeers. As D'Artagnan entered the courtyard of Monsieur de Troisville headquarters, he gazed admiringly at the noisy groups of musketeers everywhere. Some were practicing their dueling, others were standing in groups, drinking and talking and joking. The jokes seemed to be about the cardinal's guards, who were the rivals, and sometimes enemies of the king's musketeers. When D'Artagnan reached the main door of the building, he asked the guard on duty to announce him to Monsieur de Troisville. Within minutes, the captain of the musketeers came to the door. He motioned for D'Artagnan to go upstairs to his office, then stuck his head out the door, calling loudly, "Athos, Porthos, Aramis!" Two musketeers left their group and followed Troisville into the office, passing in front of D'Artagnan, who stood just inside the door. The musketeers stood at attention while the captain paced back and forth. Suddenly, Troisville stopped and turned to them angrily. "Gentlemen," he cried, "His Eminence, the Cardinal, has reported to me that 3 of my men started a riot yesterday in a wine shop, and his guards had to arrest them. Don't deny that was you, for you were recognized, you, Porthos, you, Aramis, and you." "But where is Athos? I called him in here as well." "Sir," said Aramis sadly, "Athos is ill." "Wounded, more likely," said Troisville. "Well, sir," said Porthos, "there were 6 guards against the 3 of us. We fought well." Athos, however, was seriously wounded in the chest and right shoulder, but we all managed to escape. "So, the cardinal only told me half the story," said Troisville, smiling proudly. At that moment, the door opened, and all heads turned towards it. "Athos!" cried Monsieur Troisville. "You sent for me, sir," said Athos weakly. "Yes, my boy. I was about to tell your friends that you are not to risk your lives needlessly, but I'm proud of you all." Troisville reached out to shake Athos' hand. He did not notice the murmur of pain that escaped from the brave musketeer's lips. He was busy congratulating Porthos and Aramis as well. Once the musketeers were dismissed, he turned to D'Artagnan. "Now, my boy, what can I do for the son of my oldest friend?" "Monsieur," said D'Artagnan, "I have come here to ask to join the musketeers, but now I don't think I'm worthy of such an honor. No one can become a musketeer until he has performed a great act of courage, or until he has served 2 years in a lower regiment to get his training. If only I had my letter of introduction. You'll see that I need no training, sir, but the letter was stolen on my way here." D'Artagnan then went on to tell Troisville of his adventure at Meun, and to describe the stranger who had stolen his letter. "Tell me, D'Artagnan," said Troisville, "did this man have a scar on his face?" "Yes, on his right cheek." "And was the patch over his left eye?" "Yes, sir, I am certain." "And did you hear the woman's name?" "He called her Milady." "And the instructions he gave her?" "The cardinal wished her to return to England and inform him if the Duke of Buckingham left London." It is he," cried Troisville. "Oh, sir, please tell me who this man is," pleaded D'Artagnan. "I must have my revenge." "No, do not go looking for him ever. Put these ideas of revenge out of your mind, and I shall write a letter admitting you to the regiment I spoke of. You'll make a fine cadet, I'm sure." Tréville sat down at his desk and began to write. Meanwhile, D'Artagnan strolled over to the window and looked out. Suddenly he jumped away and rushed to the door, shouting, "He shall not escape me this time." Who?" asked Tréville, startled. "The man who stole my letter," cried D'Artagnan as he disappeared out the door. Okay, we'll stop there this week, and I hope you join me for our next reading as we do this next week. Have a good week.